how's your week? You having a good one? How's your August? How's your year? Well, how's your day? I hope it's getting better, and it will right now, hopefully, with the conversation you're about to hear with the incredibly insightful Rosa Santiago Zimmerman for a rich and wide-ranging conversation about the state of interior design, the state of the industry, the evolving nature of creative work, and the deeper values that guide us as professionals. Our dialogue spans everything from our recent experiences at major trade shows like KBIS and IBS, where I met Rosa, to the strategic and emotional challenges that come with building and sustaining a design business today. And when we don't talk about the business itself, because that's not really what I do here, Rosa shares how she's navigated an often unpredictable industry landscape from the 2008 financial crisis to the more recent impact of COVID-19, emerging stronger by focusing on clarity in communication, refining her client base, and anchoring her business in authenticity and trust. Boy, if you had to start a business today and nail it down to a couple of philosophies to craft the ethos, the zeitgeist, wouldn't that be it? Wouldn't that be it? One of the most resonant parts of our conversation is Rosa's approach to client relationships and project storytelling, which I talk about all the time and I absolutely love. She believes that every project begins with truly understanding the people behind it, their story, lifestyle, and what's bringing them joy. Her philosophy goes far beyond aesthetics. It's about designing spaces that are meaningful, personal, and connected. We dive into the practical, but often overlooked aspects of the business, the need for strong contracts, the complexity of product sourcing in a globalized market, and the legal risks surrounding intellectual property. Rosa doesn't shy away from hard truths, and I love that. And I think you're going to love that too. And you're going to hear about all of it right after this. At the highest level of design, the absolute best specifying designers, architects, landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You have to, because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That's one of the reasons why I am so proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on three priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1, aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2, durability and maintenance. I've told you about my board flipping stories from my own wood decks. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease of use, and they want it to last for decades. 3, sustainably made. Clients are more conscious of the environment now, and they want the same of their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood, color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior, as it has been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled material. Their advanced PVC, vintage, and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech, or you can check them out directly, timbertech.com. You and I met at KBIS this year, and I absolutely loved it, and I love talking to you. The one problem I have with events like KBIS, it's so big. And I know 3 days is a long time, but it's not enough. It's not
Mm-hmm.
nearly enough. How many events do you go to a year?
Interesting question. So I actually don't.
Really?
So I've been in this industry for 28 years, and at the very beginning, I went to quite a lot, like every new designer in the industry. Oh, let me go here, let me go here. And then I was just like, okay, I've seen it, gotta go. And so I don't. So I had never been to KBIS. I was a KBIS virgin when I went to this KBIS this year.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
after so many years in the biz and never being to KBiz and IBS, what did you think?
Well, first of all, I didn't even get to see IBS. That's the first thing I thought. And as a contractor and a builder, I wanted to see IBS.
Yeah.
There was not enough time. It's not enough time. It is not enough time to, and the word I want to use, because I do journal every night, and one of the words that I kept on going, okay, what's the word I want to use for this experience? I was not able to appreciate how much there was to, oh my God, to gain from, to learn from, to collaborate with, to have the ability to immerse in and get to know people like you, like so many that I saw, but it was just like, wait, okay, gotta go here, gotta go. Those places when you go to a place and you just cannot, you don't feel like you're in the moment. You feel like you're trying to check off a list, a checklist. That was my experience. Don't get me wrong. I gained a lot from it. Obviously, we're here talking, but yeah, I would give it a little bit more time. If anybody asked me, what would you change about KBIS? Number one, don't include it with IBS because it's just so much. And number two, um, you know, maybe we need a week.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting too. I don't think you can separate the two just because
Right.
they're inextricably tied. But to your point, it's true. It's a lot. It's so much to take in, but there's more to it than that. It's not just the what you take in, what you see, who you meet, but it's how you feel. It's the vibe. It's really interesting. So reports back from the most recent high point was that it was a little subdued. The vibe was did you go?
No,
No.
but that
The
was that was the reports. I just met with some people yesterday, and that's exactly. They were like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
But KBiz was exuberant. It was
it was.
electric. It was ecstatic. And it's just interesting to me. And one of the things that I don't think really gets enough attention about events like that and how it affects the trade and how it affects the industry is what is the vibe in the marketplace? What is the feel? Because by by detecting all the feels, you can get a good understanding of what's happening in the marketplace. What is happening for you in the industry and in your business today? And by the way, we have so much to cover. You wrote a book, and I want to talk about it, and I want to talk about your projects. I love your work. I love what you do. I love your energy. And I think because of that, you're in touch. You have a very grounded sense about you. What is it like for you today? What was it like post, what do we call it? What is it? It's stupid. Was it Liberation Day? Is that what it was? Is that what it was?
I guess.
Pre and post, because it changed the vibe, it changed the energy, it changed everything about our industry in one day. How has it affected you?
I have to say, and I'm probably going to shock you with this answer, but like I said, I've been in this industry for 28 years, and there's been a lot that has happened, obviously, in 28 years. We've had, the crash in 2008, 2009, where everybody was out of work and unemployed, and no projects were happening, and the real estate market was a mess. and obviously a diverse group of in the administration, which it does affect how we do business. It affects financial markets. Obviously, COVID, that in itself, you know, I have been blessed and I have had a forethought in the industry. And I don't want to say it's necessarily our industry, but in business as a whole. This is my third business. And we'll have to get into that. I had two businesses prior to this in a different industry. So I am a seasoned business woman. Design just happened to be a passion that I pursued later in life. Right. And so I always feel that in business, we are here to resolve a problem. That's it. Doesn't matter the industry. You know, if I need cotton balls, what does Amazon do? Resolves a problem. I can order it, it'll be here. Same with Instacart, same with Uber delivery, all of those, right? We are here to resolve a problem. And I think that if we look at it from that perspective, regardless of the industry, then we're able to create a plan that is fail proof. And so that's part of what I've done. Yes, have there been cycles? Yes. But I very early on, because this was my third business, I decided I'm going to go after a niche market that nobody's representing. And that was your normal mom and dad, teacher, whatever, that nobody was touching because, as you know, designers, we went to the 1% and 2%. Well, 1% and 2% versus 99 and 98% is a huge difference. The other thing is I went to a market that nobody was servicing from a geographical perspective. Everybody wanted to be at the time, you know, my business, the bulk of my business was built in Atlanta. And everybody wanted to be in Buckhead and Vinings and the beautiful Millionaire Row. Well, I wanted to be out in the country with the horses and the pigs and the cows. So there are people building beautiful houses out there, but nobody was touching them because nobody would leave the perimeter. North of the perimeter, we didn't exist. And so,
OTP for you.
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Duluth, honestly, Duluth North. That was my market, and it's still my market today. And so I looked at the problem to be resolved. And so the cycles have affected me some, right? But I don't think in the way that they have affected those that are more, I'm going to say, industry driven rather than business driven. And so, you know, during COVID, I was so jealous of everybody that got to stay home and be on vacation and, you know, post workouts in their backyard because I was working. And mind you, I was not in people's houses, right? But when I tell you, during those 2 years of COVID, I turned away more business than I had turned away the 5 years prior. And obviously, the reverse of it, right? People were home and they were going, oh my God, that's an ugly wall. Oh my God, I've never noticed that my ceiling is peeling. Oh my gosh, this dishwasher is 30 years old. And so they started noticing and they started realizing, well, we're going to have to improve home. So, and it was bananas for us. It was bananas. So I haven't seen a lot of that Liberation Day, COVID pain. We also have been in a market that we're at a point in our industry and in our business that we're referral based only. I am booking a year out. So I don't feel the pain of having to go out there and search for the client and you know, be begging for the project or competing for the project. I'm again blessed, the word is blessed, in the fact that I'm sitting here and the phone call comes in. Hey, this is so and so, your friend, you did her house over here. She referred me to you. Boom. And there we go.
You know what's interesting too, and I just what I've picked up about you is you're an educator, you're a teacher.
Yes.
And Is that one of your previous jobs?
No.
Okay, but you are, and I think that's why, it's really interesting because when designers, and I always separate designers and architects because the education process for architects is far different than it
Of
is
course.
for designers.
Hmm.
Um, Architects, you have to get a degree. You have to go to school for architecture. There's a more technical aspect to it. With contractors, you have to get, in some places, you have to get a license. In others, you
Right.
don't,
Right.
which is interesting and scary at the same time. But with designers, it's a freelance. Like you can go to school for design and you can learn about art history and you can learn about textiles and you can learn about making case goods and you can learn, but they don't teach you the business. If there is a business class, did you go to design school?
I went to design school, and it's funny that you would say this. I'm going to tell you, it's my biggest pet peeve. And if you've looked at some of my other interviews, I constantly criticize and mention this. And I actually spoke to a girl at KBIS. Um, and I'll tell you her story briefly in a second. But I went to design school. There was one business class last semester. And I literally sat there as a seasoned businesswoman, right? I was already doing design before I even finished school because I knew how to run a business. I sat there and looked around me and I said, these people are going to go out there. They have no idea how to price. They have no idea how to write a contract. They have no idea what a line of credit looks like. They have no idea that before they even launch anything, they're going to need an attorney and a lawyer and a tax accountant. And I was just shocked. And I actually went to the administration. I went to the Art Institute of Atlanta, and I went to the administration and I said, I have no interest now, but you'll need to bring some business classes. These people are going out there blind. And if they're going to fail, they're not going to fail at fluffing a pillow. They're not going to fail at putting the table with the wrong scale on the corner. They're going to fail when they're, you know, owing thousands of dollars, whether it's in taxes or whether somebody dupes them because the contract wasn't specific enough. I was just shocked, beyond shocked, Josh, honestly. So I'm glad
Yeah.
you brought that up.
Yeah, well, it's important too because one of the things that I do on the show, and for those listening, they know it, and I talk about it a lot. I tend to bring up a lot of themes over and over again because I track over time. I've always thought of this podcast not as something that is, isolated in a vacuum, but as a living, breathing thing. And it's really interesting because one of the things that's on my radar right now, and I kind of wanted to address this with you because we're talking about it, is there are three legal cases that I'm tracking. And I want your take on this because I think it's important. One is Gifford v. Shield, which is two fashion influencers. Uh, the case is really interesting. It's intellectual property, but it's about one basically stealing the other's or being accused of stealing the other's vibe. Like she's posting the same kind of things using the same style, which really is scary to me if you think about it, because then a designer can say, well, I'm a beige maximalist, and anyone other designer who wants to do beige maximalism in any work and post it online is now in breach of or is infringing on someone's intellectual property, which is really scary. The other is the Clements Design and Kardashian versus Donald Judd Foundation. You can't just replicate the La Manzana table in the Chair 84 and if you're a celebrity who wants to call themselves, a furniture expert,
Mm-hmm.
don't buy dupes. There's a market for dupes, and maybe we can talk about that too. And then
Yeah.
the third one, to your point, is Aaron Judge versus Drew Designs LLC. I don't know if you've seen that one,
I
but
have not.
it's a contract issue, and there is so much, and it's interesting because you're a contractor, you're a designer.
Mhm.
As a contractor, you have to have a far I'm speculating, I'm just asking, but it seems like you would have to have a far tighter contract than on the design side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, I have just a side on the design side. But again, because part of what they don't teach us, which is, you know, part of my future goal as I start to transfer knowledge, because honestly, that's where I'm at in my career now. That's the reason why I went to KBIS. That's the reason why I'm making the rounds. Is because it's where what my next goal for the next 10 years is let me transfer some of this knowledge to the future generations and hope that they're listening so that they don't trip and fall the way we did, the way I did. But it's a CYA type of business, no matter what, and everything cannot be left to interpretation. So my design agreement from the very beginning was very detailed because I want to make sure that the legality of the business doesn't get in the way of the creative side of the business. So if we can take the business of the business out of the way first, and we are copacetic, we are happy with where we are, then now we can go have fun and we can go be creative and we can go source and do all the amazing stuff. But the same thing goes on with the build. And they're very minor tweaks that you want to make to your agreements, but it's the ability not to leave anything for interpretation because your perspective is completely different than mine. That should be my assumption from day one. If I say I'm going to, I don't know, tile this wall, well, what am I using? Am I using marble, corian, quartz? Am I bringing it from, Italy? There's a lot in there that goes with, I'm going to tile this wall. And so it is those details that I feel that are not included. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble. Absolutely.
Well, it's interesting to me too, because you're targeting the 98.5%. The people who don't traditionally use design contractors, I think is a larger percentage for sure,
Mhm.
but that don't use design services. And with that, you get into, especially now, how are you navigating this tariff environment? How are you navigating the current business climate? And how do you navigate that with an uneducated clientele? I think there's a benefit there in that you get to teach them how to be good clients.
Mhm.
You don't have to break any bad habits, but it
Right.
still requires a lot of effort.
Well, you said something which to me is a compliment. To me, it's the fact that what you see is what you get with me. I don't have this air of, oh, I'm a designer and I don't know. I just, that's with me. And I think that's where I bring the balance. So when I'm working with a client, when that decision is made, there's already a trust that I am 100% there for them. When a client asks me, what do you think? And I said, I usually answer, well, professionally, this would be the better option because the return on investment would be better. But at the end of the day, what I think is irrelevant. I love my house. You need to love yours. And so it's those very real and authentic and and I don't want to say they're unprofessional. They're just very real conversations with our clients that allow me to have that trust with them. In regards to the tariffs, listen, we've gone through this quite a lot, and without getting into the political arena of the tariffs, right? I actually sent an email to quite a few of my vendors in the past couple of weeks. We have as a society to make a decision. And I get it, right? I get the fact that if I can buy it from China, it's cheaper. I get it. Okay. And a lot of my vendors bring a lot of stuff from China. But here's the thing. I have a problem, and this happened to all of us during COVID. I have a problem with the fact that your tariff hike is across the board for inventory you already have in the warehouse and for inventory that is not 100% from China. I have a problem with that. And during COVID, we were so, the way I describe COVID to all of us is our heads were in a blender and it just would not stop shaking, right? We just couldn't sit down and think straight. But now we're sitting down and we're thinking straight. And so the email that I sent out to my vendors was the following. I want to know what products are coming from China. Well, that would require all of our websites to be blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, then I'm going to need to make a decision whether I need to continue to use you or whether I'm going to start hitting the mom and pops in North Carolina and Virginia and New York and San Antonio and all. I have to make that decision. So, and I will tell you, this happened on Friday. I was at a meeting looking at automatic window coverings. And the supplier comes to me and she says, well, this particular product's from China. And I said, put it away. Don't want to see it. Again, if I am here to protect the interest of my client, that's part of that conversation. And so I've had this conversation with my present clients at this very moment. What would you want for me to do? And the clientele that I have right now are very pro, if we can buy it in America, let's buy it in America. And so I said, good, I feel the same way. Let's figure out if we can at the very least source it in America. If we cannot source it in America, then we'll go, whether it's Vietnam, India, whoever. But either we're part of the problem or we're part of the solution, but we can't be in the middle. And so again, the authenticity that I bring, those conversations, and let me tell you, I have clients at this very moment on both sides of the aisle. But the conversation is, what would you like for me to do in regards to your product? But here's the other issue we're seeing, and this is a little bit of a sidetrack, Josh, but I don't know if you guys have seen this with your other interviews. I am beginning to find retail be cheaper than my showrooms. A lot.
I think there's a number of reasons for that, which is interesting because you brought. I believe wholeheartedly that our industry should be better connected, and by connected I mean we should have a stronger lobby. Mm-hmm. We should have a fortified industry trade organization. You have some that are members of ASID or with the architects and AIA, which is kind of a different situation because building, it's so different. You're in Atlanta. I'm from LA. I'm living in Tulsa. You can look at building requirements in Los Angeles County and Title 24 in California, and then you can come to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and have absolutely none of that, like virtually no restrictions, and anyone can build anything anywhere at any time, it feels like. And
Right.
Atlanta, I know that there are certain differences based on where you are, but I think we should have a stronger organization. I think that when you're trying to explain math to clients who don't really understand the situation, and then they'll ask you, well, okay, I get that this product is coming from a heavily tariffed country, but we're ordering it in March, or we're ordering it after Liberation Day, whatever, but the tariffs hadn't gone into effect yet. So why are you upcharging me for tariffs that haven't gone into effect yet?
Yes.
It doesn't make sense, and nobody seems to want to explain that it's not logical. And there should be a catalog of product. It's impossible to do. You would think we'd be better at this, but I want to know what product cost last year. I'd love to know what it cost 5 years ago. Why is there a 13% increase every single year? I don't get paid. I don't get a 13% increase.
No.
Year over year.
No.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But there's no, so how do you answer those questions, especially for clients who are that, I want to say not as savvy, they're just not as educated.
Well, but that's not necessarily the case, because just because I am in a different geographical area, and just so that you know, I am in Georgia, in Florida, and in Alabama. Okay, that's where I work, and I actually have projects right now in Georgia, in Florida, and in Alabama. And so that's not necessarily the case. My clients, if you look through my portfolio, my clients are extremely educated individuals. They're just not,
I'm
not,
sorry, I don't mean that. I don't
yeah,
mean that they're not educated. I mean
right.
that you're targeting clients who
Mhm.
have not traditionally used a designer before, so they don't know how that works. They're not educated on that process.
And we educate them on the process. One of the things that I did very beginning, first day out of school, well, before I even left school, I don't charge markups. I don't. You pay for my time. I don't care if this costs me $3 or if it costs me $700. There it is. If it costs me $5 for shipping, it's $3 plus the $5 for shipping. I keep it super simple. And here's where, like I said, remember at the beginning, I said there's that forethought. I don't know if you've seen the new feature from Microsoft. Pull up an image, and what's next to that image? Pull up an area rug, doesn't matter what. Right on the very top corner, there's a little box that looks like an Instagram icon. It's a shop me icon. It's automatic. So now you, as a consumer, can click on that little shop me, and it brings you this area rug, who has it for where and how much. I literally just did this with a item that I sourced for one of my clients, and I found it for $300 cheaper and free shipping, and I don't charge markup. So we have to be smart enough to stay, at least, in our firm, we were to stay ahead of the trends of, hey, okay, this fabric cost me $5 a yard, but I'm going to charge my clients $35 a yard. But, and that's one of the biggest complaints, and I'm sure you hear it. Well, clients are shopping me, clients are shopping me, clients are shopping me. Well, you know, we are all living in the same society. We are all paying $14 a dozen for eggs. We are paying $9 a gallon for it. It hurts you as much as it hurts me. So, yes, we have a savvy consumer. How do we stay on top? For us to work with the savvy consumer and not hurt ourselves in the process. I don't care where my clients, I had a client text me yesterday, hey, I found this chandelier, whatever. I absolutely love it. Do you love it? Yes. What's the scale? This. Buy it. I don't care. You know how much easier that's for me? It works with the concept. You just paid me for 20 minutes of my time. Fantastic. Bye.
You're listening to my conversation with Rosa Santiago Zimmerman. We will be right back. The most important word in the design industry today is service. Product, incredibly important. Price, important. Selection, incredibly important. But stellar service is the premier idea that can make all the difference in the success of any project. This is how design professionals like you demand great service for your projects. And you get your favorite brands in one place with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commissioned professionals to help you specify the right product for each of your projects and get the best price. Non-commissioned, that is incredibly important. And at Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, that means their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that with over 60 years of service in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, inspiration, all the best brands, great prices, the best in the industry when it comes to service, and you know it's reliable. You know that you are going to get predictable results, reliable results every time. And now you have the Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team to help you with their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you've ever experienced before. Earn 3% in Best Buy e-gift cards or 2.5% in a reward check for every qualified and delivered sale, in addition to special trade pricing, exclusive offers, access to exclusive special events, and so much more that I can't even begin to try and list it all here. And here's the cherry on top. Access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands and the stellar service you deserve from a company that has been serving the industry for over 60 years. Now, terms and conditions apply to the Pro Rewards program and builder trade incentives. So visit a Pacific sales expert at a showroom today for full details and learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights. The Design Hardware Showroom is a space where specifiers can go and find an incredible selection of high-end faucets, luxury tile, natural stone, wood floors, and bespoke hardware, and so much more. Select products are presented in a holistic manner, strategically arranged to stimulate creativity and transition your vision from the conceptual stage to a fully realized space. You will find everything you're looking for, even the products by brands you didn't know you didn't know. Surprise and delight. Am I right? All under one roof on 3rd Street in Los Angeles, just up the street from the Grove. Conveniently located, free parking available. Stop by to find inspiration, collect samples, get expert advice, and tackle everything on your specification list all in one place. Visit them online at designhardware.com, at Design Hardware and Flooring on the socials, or in the real world, 6053 West 3rd Street in Los Angeles. And I love that too. And I kind of wanted to shift gears on you because therein lies one of your superpowers, which I love. The book that you wrote, and you were nice enough, you were kind enough to give me a copy and inscribed it to my daughter, which thank you.
Oh,
I love this because it's geared towards kids. And it's really interesting because having kids in college, it makes you realize, and I don't want to sound a certain way when I say this, but college isn't for everyone.
no.
Um, and college wasn't designed for everyone. And it's not a value judgment if you don't choose to go to a 2-year or a 4-year university, college or university. It's not a value judgment if you choose to or not to go get an MBA or a PhD or further your education. It doesn't mean that you have to be a garbage man or a ditch digger. It doesn't mean what I feel like it means is that you get to you get to be the person that you want to be. This is not my first career either. I started out in radio, and
Awesome.
I was in radio sales. It's not anything I would recommend for anybody, especially in the mid '90s when I started. It was not a it's not a kind, loving environment. Most sales aren't, but there are some people that thrive in that like love it and they want that competitive combat every single day. There are others that, if you want to be a plumber, there's an amazing plumbers, electricians, all the trades. You can be an artisan and you can make more money than a doctor if you do it the right way.
Mhm.
I just feel like we've gotten into this hyperloop, this circle where education has become the end all be all, and it doesn't cover the experience. It doesn't cover the what you want to be and what makes you happy and what makes you thrive, as opposed to languishing, doing something you don't really want to do. But it's like you have to, after high school, you have to go to college. It's like, no, you really don't. And many of the architects and designers that I've spoken to, many designers would say, I knew I wanted to do this from the time I was 3 years old. And many that I've spoken to, by the way, most of color, have said Like I was talking to Jean Brownhill years
Hmm.
ago, and she said, you know, when I was a little girl, I didn't know what architecture was. And when I discovered architecture, I just knew that that's what I wanted to do and that's who I wanted to be. And what you've done is you've created a mechanism, you've created a tool, a vehicle to allow kids to learn about something that is always around them, but they just never really noticed it. And I think that's amazing. Why did you do that?
You know, it was you hit the nail on the head on something. I am an educator. I have always thrived in being able to level people up. You know, I had a meeting a couple of years ago with a consultant. We were having some HR issues, and I brought her in and I said, listen, I've had to have a come to Jesus with myself. I said, because those need to happen once in a while. And I realized the following. I said, I am not a manager. As a matter of fact, I suck at being a manager, but I am a leader. I can make you fly. I can attach you to my hip and we're going to fly because I see opportunity at every corner. But if I have to manage how you're going to fly, you're going to crash. And so I needed to have that realization of myself in order to be able to bring in the people to help me manage the people that needed managing, because I honestly failed and still do till this day at it. And that was the same thing after this book. I thrive and love inspiring. I you made a comment, you said that's your superpower. I'm going to give you something that I haven't told anybody at all. There's a book coming out, not sure when, but it's coming. It's in the works. And the word superpower, superwoman, superman is in it, in the title. Okay? And the reason why is because, my parents both, and I'm a child of divorce, but my parents both always said to me, there is nothing you cannot do. There is nothing you cannot do. When I raised my children, the words can't was just as bad as any four-letter word you would have in my house. You don't want to? Okay, let's have that conversation. You don't wish to? Whatever. But can't is not a word we use in our house. And so in combination with my ability to lead, it was the fact that also there isn't a lot of books out there telling people about this industry. I had no idea what a designer was either growing up. No idea whatsoever. When I grew up, I wanted to be a maternal fetal medicine physician. And then I became a paramedic. And, you know, I went from the medical field to the creative field. And in between that, I had a couple of businesses. But I didn't know that I had this gift because honestly, I could have done this without going to school. School taught me, honestly, and I hate to say this because I do love my school. School taught me nothing. Okay? I knew space planning. I had the gift. I knew color theory. I had the gift. I loved, actually that's the best thing that I did in school was the history of art and design because I just love history. But it didn't teach me the things I needed to do what I do now. Because the job that I have now is I have to be able to sell you in the idea that what I'm about to do for you is going to be amazing. And you, having been in sales, understand that it's an energy. That's a vibe. That's a contagious, oh my God, I trust this woman. If you look at the reviews, testimonials that we have out there, that's my biggest compliment, that our clients say she's infectious. She's so much fun to be around. And I wanted to share that with kids. I wanted to share my industry with children. I wanted to share, I am now a grandma. I shared this with you at KBIS. I have a 2.5 year old granddaughter, and then now I have a 2-month-old grandson, and I've got another granddaughter coming any minute now. I wanted them to be able to see that the sky is the limit. I wanted them to be able to see our industry. My daughter followed in my steps, and so she is in the industry, not necessarily in design, but she is in the industry. And, um, I wanted my grandkids and future generations and little Latinas like me out there to see that this is an opportunity. And not only from a design or architecture or builder perspective, but I've got a painting crew that is all female. The owner of that business is making mint. Okay? She worked her rear end off to build that crew. I have a sheetrock crew that has about 6 females in it. It is the ability to be able to see that opportunity and fly with it. And that's what I wanted it to do. And I wanted it to do in a way that was engaging. I wanted to tell the story from my point of view, a little Puerto Rican girl going out there, strapping a tool belt around her waist and her tape measure, but dressed pretty in her pretty boots, because we got to balance it out. And just educate them about what I do through the projects. As you know, the project that we did was also filmed. So you can watch the project on YouTube in real time as I am working the project, as you're able to share this with your children, grandchildren, and just to create that collective. Because I wanted this book to be so many things. I wanted these to be life lessons. I wanted these to be family connection. I wanted this to be education of our industry, and knowing that, blue collar is no longer blue collar. And if you're smart, you start realizing that really soon. One person that I would love to talk to about this is Mike Rowe, because he's been doing it for a long time, bringing forth the fact that, hey, electricians are making a killing. Plumbers are making a killing. And we need more and more and more, because why are our jobs behind schedule? Because we don't have enough trade. Competent, licensed trade that can bring us forward. We're never going to stop building. Our industry is kind of like the technology industry. We're not going anywhere, ever.
It's remarkable to have this conversation because we don't get to have it enough. Totally agree with you wholeheartedly, and it's really interesting because I had a conversation with Mike years and years and years ago. I want to say this is like
So jealous.
I want to say this is maybe 2009 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's when he started his podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working for Rick Dees, a radio guy, a long
I know
time
who he is.
CHR radio guy, and I was
Yes.
working for Rick, and his studios in Burbank, and we were talking to Mike about bringing his podcast to record from those studios, and it's really interesting because having this conversation with him and his producers like fully understood the whole zeitgeist of this, and he's been pounding that table for decades now, and it's really interesting. But what I find so interesting about our industry is we focus on the star architects and we focus on the celebrity designers and we focus on from the publications, and they focus on the celebrity driven projects and these projects that cost millions and millions of dollars. But the really important part of our industry, where the work is really important, is not for the celebrity who has 15 houses and they go from one luxury mansion to the next, but the person who has one house, who has to live there while their kids are growing up and to change their lives through extraordinary design is it's tangible, it's real, and you can see how that effect on people's lives. And that's why I feel so strongly about, the design trade. And there are certain trades missing, things that nobody even really noticed before. Like, for example, at the beginning of COVID, there were workrooms, and a
Mhm.
select few of designers would go utilize these workrooms, and it was great, and it was kind of an industry secret.
Mhm.
And then when the supply chain seized up and people couldn't get any product, then it's like, well, who's going to make this for me in my neighborhood? Guess what? Those workrooms, you couldn't touch them after a while. After a while, it was like, you know what? Sorry, but I'm booked out for the next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like that's kind of where the industry is going. When a showroom goes under or a manufacturer of furniture goes under, someone has to fill that void. And people are realizing that it's not about mass manufacturing anymore. It's
Nope.
it's it's about a boutique industry that can better the lives of those who are living in these designed and built spaces.
I agree. I agree. And like I said, I have ran my business very close to my heart. That's all I have. And you talked about college. Both of my kids um, finished high school, and our son, who at the time was in the acting industry, said to me, "Will you be disappointed if I don't go to college?" And I said, "Absolutely not." I was like, "Where I think you need to go is to Los Angeles, like the day after you graduate." And guess what? 2 days after he graduated, he was in LA. And did his thing, and he became recognizable, and you know, COVID killed that. But I have always told my children, both of them, when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're picking strawberries, if you're hauling garbage bags, if you are designing, you know, the house for the next Kardashian. As long as every single day you wake up and you go, I love what I do. Who cares? And I think I think as a society, we're changing that because, I think that the awareness that we've gotten on the colleges lately, um, we're a little scared. We're not sending our kids to learn all these other things that are values that should be taught at home, right? I've always been of the school of thought that I don't need exterior forces to educate my children when it comes to the type of people and humans they need to be, or the kind of faith that they need to have, and whatever, or those values. I have the ability to teach them at home. They're there to learn a trade, an education, um, and so a skill set. And so I think we're seeing that, and I think more and more. I mean, look at the Joanna Gaines. That she's, whichever way you feel about her, it doesn't really matter. Not a designer, right? That wasn't her trade. Her trade was in the TV industry. So it just we there's an authenticity that I feel that is coming out, and I'm hoping that I'm bringing that out with the book for children. I'm hoping that I'm creating that connection. I'm hoping that I'm doing that when I am speaking to different groups, whether it's at panels or doing speaking engagements, where I just, you know, show them how to be who they are. And that's hard a lot for our industry. And I know for a fact it's hard in places like downtown Atlanta, LA, because there's a facade
Facade, for sure.
that we need to have. Um, but my advice to anybody listening out there would be, at the end of the day, when you look in the mirror, do you like what you see?
It's broad. I get you. Totally.
Yeah.
I think it's broader than that too. It's interesting because, coming full circle to where we first started, this idea that not everyone, you know, I remember when I was a teenager, I would just laugh. Do you remember those stores, Spencer Gifts in the
Yes.
mall? And as a teenager, I would go to Spencer and I would go back to where the posters were and I would just go through all those remember they had them all and you could
Yes.
pull them to the side
And
and
the thingy.
yeah. And there was one that had it was a hand holding like a thing of fries and
Yes.
someone putting the fries in it and the caption was not everyone gets to be an astronaut. And I mean, that was like for me, that was as memorable and iconic as the kitten hanging on the ball of rope hanging there, baby. Remember
Yeah.
that? But for me, it's like not everyone gets to be an astronaut, and I don't know why that stuck with me, but I think about it often because, like you were saying, focusing your business on the outside the perimeter as opposed to inside the perimeter, because Atlanta has this very distinct line of delineation, right? And LA has neighborhoods, and New York boroughs, same thing. But when I left Manhattan Beach and moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, life became uncomplicated. It's the only way I can really describe it.
Yeah.
It's a 20-minute drive. I could be at my door leaving for a trip, walk out the door 20 minutes later, sitting at the gate, like through at the airport, park the car through security. Um, I can be sitting there at the gate 20 minutes later.
I get it. I live in Freeport, Florida.
Yeah,
Same
LAX.
thing.
LAX is a very different experience than that. Here in Tulsa, eggs are 3.75 a dozen. Gas is 2.68 a gallon. It's not just cheaper, but it's less complicated. But finding trades, competent, talented trades is much more difficult.
Right.
And there's no look, you're not born with this God-given right to live in Manhattan Beach or to live in the city of Manhattan. You can live anywhere. It's a choice. We're blessed with that ability to go someplace less complicated and still live the way that we want to live. But it's interesting for me as you talk about structuring it's really a branding issue. How
Mhm.
you've taken your gifts and your skills and you've molded them and structured them into a brand. And I look at your projects and I can see one of the things that you do that I absolutely love, not just as an educator, because you are, and you are clearly a very skilled designer. I don't know how you are as a contractor, but I'm going to imagine you're equally skilled. But as a storyteller, exceptional. When I'm looking at your projects, this is one thing that you do that I don't see everyone in the industry do, and I wish they did more. Like when I'm looking through your project gallery, the names that you have for your project, it's not Elm Street or the Smiths. Each one has a story. You recognize the story. I'm looking at a warning drool zone
Yes.
right now.
And
Um,
that's gonna be a book, by the way.
is that right?
Yes, that's the next book.
Well, I love that, and I'm looking, and it's funny because I tend to go with themes quite often, and the first image that I see is this white kitchen, and it's funny because a pet peeve of mine is every year when all of the trends come out, every magazine puts out there and website puts out there. Here are the top 10 things you're going to see in 2025. Here are the top 10 things you're not going to see anymore in 2025. The white kitchen is always every year on both lists.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. But as long as people want a white kitchen, as long as there are people who want a white kitchen, there will be white kitchens. But the manner in which you style your projects, you name your projects, you kind of create a narrative around them. Where does that come from? Are you creating the narrative as you're doing it? Do you do it before you ever go break a wall, or is it something that after the fact when you're shooting and styling that you give it some thought?
No, this happens When I interview prospective clients, and this may sound a little arrogant, and I hope it does not, because I believe it's something everybody needs to include in the way that they vet their clients. When I'm vetting my clients, I come to them and I explain to them that not only am I there to answer their questions and see if the synergy is in place for us to work together, right? But I'm also there for me to decide if I want to accept this client. And so I think that brings their shields down instead of bringing them up. And it allows us to have that very authentic, real conversation of, why am I here? How am I here to serve you? I've said this since day one. I am a vessel. I happen to be skilled at what I do, and I am the vessel to translate what may or may not be in your head, what feelings you may or may not have yet, into what you're going to see when you walk into this home. And so, is having those very authentic conversations. I start in my head, and the way I see this, and my editor, if he listens to this, he's going to laugh. I see a film strip. Okay. Who am I serving? Why am I serving them? What's the vision? What is my goal? And again, I'm always in the mode of service. I am there to serve. I'm not there for my own. Yes, I get paid, but I am there to serve. And so I start putting it together. You know, you probably don't know why that project is called Warning Drool Zone, do you?
No.
You probably can't tell by the pictures.
Well, if I have to guess, I mean, well, no, I don't know, but it's an
Mhm.
enviable kitchen. I can tell you that.
Well, but if you look at the book, at
Okay.
Rosita's Design Adventure, and you go to the last page where I give you the teaser of the next project or the next book that's coming out, it's a double page, and you'll see it's called Country Estates.
Hmm.
Do you see what was on that picture?
No, I didn't want to. It was too distracting. Hold on. Wait,
I'm
which
going to
one?
let you open it because
The last page of the not the
it'll
last page.
say, the next book is Country Estates, and you'll see a woman sitting by the pool.
This is the last page I see.
No, okay, go back. I don't have a book in front of me, but go
Okay.
back a couple of pages. Yeah. Like
Okay.
towards the end of the book before the glossary. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay. So what do you see in those pictures?
Well, I see a lot.
Well, is there two huge ass dogs?
Yes. Yes, there are.
So does that give you a drool zone?
Ah, okay. All right.
So this project, and this is how I select my projects to answer your question. This is how the film strip is putting together. This project is 13 acres, 6,000 square foot home, beautiful outside in the Georgia mountains. This couple doesn't have any children. These are their kids. That's Rags and Bella. Rags and Bella are mastiffs.
Mhm.
What do mastiffs do?
They
They
drool.
drool.
Yes.
But look at the amazing part of this project. Every fabric, every paint, every texture, everything selected for this project had to be selected for these dogs. Because, and people may not know this who are listening, when mastiffs shake their heads and the drool flies from left to right and it hits a wall or a lampshade, it dries black. So that's why Warning Drool Zone, because that's what that was. When I went there, I wore the oldest clothes I had because Rags and Bella loved me. I was there for a year and a half, and I would come out wet from head to toe. And so I am telling, the titles are selected because I am telling the client's story. And that's what we do in design. And if designers out there don't realize that, I would challenge them to sit down and understand we're telling the client's story. The Blue House, which is the book you have right now, if you look at the YouTube and you look at the story, this is a very heartwarming story of these clients who are coming after 30 some years into their first home per se. It was not their first physical home, but it's the first place that they're actually becoming, setting roots, calling it a home, putting pictures on the wall after a tragedy that they experienced. And so, I'm telling their story. And so that's part of the film strip that I see. And if I am with a client, I'm meeting them, and I don't see that film strip, they will not be a client.
And it's interesting what you call, your client evaluation
Mm-hmm.
is, I've long called it a suitability. I think that there has to be a suitable nature between client and creative. There just
Of
has to
course.
be. You have to be,
I,
they have to be suitable for you just as much as you have to be suitable for them. And it's not just about the money or the design.
yeah. No. And it's not only that. And again, because I'm an educator, I do like to share. I tell newer designers or builders or contractors this: listen, you want your work to speak for you. Most of us, right, don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing dollars to advertise what we do. And so, why am I referral based and have been referral based for the past 15 years? Because my work speaks for what I do. Because if that synergy is not there, and a client, first of all, if a client's going to go to refer me and they're going to be like, well, I work with that designer or that builder, you already lost a referral. Second of all, this is me being selfish in the process, but selfish for my client. I don't want a client to ever walk into their home and say, ugh, that designer did this room. Ugh, that contractor or that builder did this house. How horrible would I feel to think that any of my clients would have to live in the biggest expense probably in their lifetime and go, ugh, no, I wouldn't be able to sleep. And so to me, it's selfish that if I feel any kind of ick in that initial, it is not happening as a service to them and as a service to me.
That's how you keep from having to fire clients.
Oh, absolutely. And I will tell you, in 28 years, I've had two issues.
Yeah.
Two.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good for 28 years.
Boy, I'll say. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
listen, Rosa, this was amazing. I am so thankful that we met. I am so grateful that for both the book and that you made the time to do this today. So thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. Bring me back whenever you want to talk about any industry, any topic in our industry, because I would love to continue to level the next generation up. And if I can do it with you, even better.
Thank you, Rosa. Loved our chat and so grateful to have run into you at KBiz. And of course, thank you to our amazing partner sponsors, TimberTech, Pacific Sales, and Design Hardware. These are incredible companies and true friends of the trade. So please keep them in mind for your next project. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing the show with your friends and colleagues. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Just hit that subscribe button so you get every new episode automatically to your feed. I always love hearing from you, so keep those messages coming. Email me, convobydesign@outlook.com, and follow along on Instagram at convobydesign with an X. Until next week, thank you for spending this time together. Be well. And again, now that it's arrived in earnest, stay focused and rise above the chaos.